Welcome to the Collective Scope podcast, where we talk to great leaders who are influencing the next generation.
Welcome back to the Collective Scope podcast. This is Jeff, and my partner in crime, Rob Foltz, is on an airplane headed to San Diego, California, somewhere over there where it's warm and sunny all the time. So I will take full responsibility for anything that happens today. We've got a great guest with us and a new friend we met at Passion, Sadie Robertson. You may know Sadie from her time on the Duck Dynasty. She was also runner-up in ABC's Dancing with the Stars. But more importantly, she's an author, a speaker, and really making an impact on young lives and young adults' lives through that ministry. So welcome to the show, Sadie.
Thank you so much. Good to be on.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. So I got to know, I'm not a committed fan, but Dancing with the Stars, was that pretty fun?
It was so fun. It was literally the craziest experience ever. But man, we had a blast. It was hard. It was challenging, but all in all, like the most fun thing ever. I didn't know dancing could be so hard because it's kind of like, when people say like cheerleading's not a sport and then the cheerleaders are like, oh, yes, it is. That's how it is for dancing. It's like, it looks just like fun, but it's really hard. But we had a blast.
That's good. Had you ever danced before? Like
No,
those type
not
of dances?
at all. Like when I was little, I did dance. Like when I was like like kindergarten, and then quit. And so I had never danced before. That was a whole new experience, and it was quite the place to start. But it was really fun.
Well, that's great. That's great. I am not a dancer. Let's just be honest about it. Like the Lord did not give me rhythm at all. So we had a couple weeks ago, we had Rebecca Lyons. You know Rebecca and Gabe Lyons?
She's one of my mentors. I love her.
So we had her on, and she was talking about rhythms and things like that. And like, it blessed me so much because I can't even clap on beat. And I was like, Rebecca, you're saying I have rhythm? This is amazing. So
new rhythms.
I got no rhythm at all. No rhythm except for what Rebecca taught me that day. So, but you kind of have grown up in the spotlight though, with the Duck Dynasty TV show and all of that. So what was that like? How were your teenage years growing up with that kind of notoriety?
Yeah, I will say, if I look back on it and I think about it, I would say it was crazy. But at the same time, during it didn't feel so crazy because it was just our life and it was my whole family doing it together. But yeah, I mean, our show started whenever we started filming when I was in 8th grade. And then our last episode filmed right before I graduated high school. So it was all throughout high school. Freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year was filming a TV show and a TV show exploding. And so it was crazy, but at the same time, we lived in West Monroe, Louisiana. It almost felt like we were very sheltered there, but at the same time, we had like 30 film crew people in our house every day, and our house, like our lights were camera lights, and like everything was filmed. And after school or during school, we'd film. I remember like sophomore year, I missed 75 days of school because of filming. And
Oh, wow.
so there was definitely a lot to keep up with and stuff like that. And then by junior years, when I was on Dancing with the Stars, and so that added a whole new element. But played basketball all throughout, and so tried to keep like some kind of normality in the sense of like in the like middle of crazy. But I think my parents did a good job at making sure we were still grounded, making sure we still had things that made us a 17-year-old or a 16-year-old instead of like, oh, wow, you're on TV all of a sudden.
Yeah. So I didn't know you played basketball. So now we got to talk basketball. Like,
Oh, yeah.
So what position did you play? Were you like point guard or?
I was point guard up until.
Like, that doesn't surprise me somehow. Like, you just need to run the show.
I love point guard. I really did. But then I ended up being a guard once the show started because I was gone so much.
Yeah.
So kind of transitioned, but man, I love basketball. I was like not willing to give that up because before the show started, I really wanted to play college basketball. Like that was like a dream of mine. I had trained for that. Like I've been, man, that was my dream. And then, obviously by the time junior year hit, I started noticing God was taking me in a different direction, but I was not willing to quit. I was like, I still want to play for my team. So.
That's all right. So is it Go Tigers? Are you an LSU girl?
Well, here's the thing. My family says go Tigers, and I have always said go Tigers, but now my husband goes to Auburn. So I have to say War Eagle. I literally have to say War Eagle. It's crazy.
At least it's not Alabama Auburn. That's a whole nother conversation, right?
Totally, yeah. It could be totally different.
Yeah. So you mentioned something that I find interesting that whole journey of filming, you said your parents kind of help you stay grounded, and I imagine it being difficult as a teenager. I've got now 4 in my house. One just moved out. Rob just finished. He's got college age kids. So I have teenagers. So I understand the need for grounded. Who were those voices besides maybe your parents who helped kind of keep you grounded and gave you wisdom during that time?
Yeah, so I think besides my parents, honestly, my siblings, like we were all going through at the same time. Like my brother and I got really, really close during that time. I remember like before Duck Dynasty, my brother and I were a classic like brother and sister who fought about everything. And then when the show started, I guess I've never really thought about it being the same time, but when the show started, we got really close because we kind
Really?
of realized like we needed each other, and like there's nobody else that like understands necessarily what we were going through in our hometown at the
Hmm.
time. So we got
So,
really close. And
is
then
that your twin
from that
brother?
point, I surrounded myself with other mentors who started to pour into my
Yeah.
life. Rebecca Lyons is one of them, actually, and different women who just kind of got it and would just like speak into my life and pray for me and be honest and real with me. Like I told
Yeah.
everybody, I was like, I need you to be real. Like if y'all see me showing signs of crazy, like lock me in a basement. Like make sure I'm good before I like go out in the spotlight. Because who you are off the stage or out of the spotlight is who you will be on stage and in the spotlight. And so
Yeah.
just the people around me were really real with me about who I was and who I was becoming and what influence I was going to make.
Yeah. So those people like Rebecca and the other mentors you have, did they find you or did you reach out to them?
Kind of both ways. A lot of them actually found my mom. It's funny because my
Yeah.
mom is like their age. And so they would be talking to my mom and encouraging my mom and where she was, because at the same time, my mom was hitting the fame, because our whole family
Hmm.
was on the show. And so my mom would kind of give me the advice that they would give her. And then eventually it just morphed into my mom giving me their number and us staying in contact. Like Shelly Giglio has been an amazing mentor to my mom and myself. And so women like that who just kind of saw it and reached out were huge
Yeah.
helps. And then, of course, in my family, my grandparents, my mom, my siblings, I think we all just kind of understood that we're going through something that's different and we need each other. And that was very
Right.
helpful.
Yeah. So I've always been a big advocate of mentoring. I think that happened for me in college. There's he's now a professor here, Dr. Lamb, but I know him as William, sort of found me as a young man who was not really off the rails, but needed some direction and said, "Hey, I'm going to guide you." And almost an instant heart connect with the man I call William, who's Dr. Lamb here on campus. But have you found that with like the Rebeccas and the Shelly Giglios that it's not just sort of much a teaching relationship, but there's a real heart connect to you?
Definitely a heart connect. It's like when we meet, it's really cool because it's like, yes, they're pouring into me so much, but I feel like at the same time, they always seem to be so encouraged where I'm at. And Rebecca told me one time, she's like, it's really cool whenever wisdom meets zeal. She's like, because I
Oh,
pour into
it's
with
good.
wisdom and you encourage me with your zeal. And I think that's the thing. It's like a heart connection of like a older generation and a younger generation coming together and encouraging each other with right where they're at and what they're both believing for. And it's
Hmm.
really powerful. Definitely a heart connection. And then there's like other people that you meet who will like come in for a season or will come in for a day, you'll
Yeah.
have a great conversation or a great phone call or a great time with them. But then at the same time, like there's another person in the next. And that's okay, because everybody, like I feel like that's just like the body of Christ. That we can pour into each other. We can love each other, call each other, encourage each other. But that doesn't mean they have to be like your number one mentor
Yeah.
person.
Yeah. I think we get both those. I think you're right. I think there are people who journey with us for long times, and I think there are people who God sends in moments
Yeah,
to speak in that moment the right word at the right time, which I think is so incredible that God does that. I mean, I can't say how many times somebody has in a moment said something, and I'm like, I don't even know how you know that, but
exactly. Yeah.
they knew that they needed to say that at that moment, and it transformed or changed the whole entire circumstance for me. So as somebody who's sort of a voice for your generation, and I think that's sort of your heart bend. We got to hear you preach a passion. You did a phenomenal job
Thank you.
encouraging those in your peer group and age group, which is sort of a unique place. I mean, at Passion, we had everybody from you to John Piper and Rabbi Zacharias, who are not in your age group, clearly,
Right,
but still
right.
had something to say. What are you finding that you have to say to that peer group?
Yeah, it's crazy. I think it's crazy to even be in a room with people like John Piper and Robbie, because I look up to them so much, and like they're just full of wisdom. And so when Louie and Shelly asked me to speak of passion, and I looked at everybody else, I was like, okay, I don't know how I'm gonna do this. And I remember like they asked me a year in advance, and so I got a year to like pray into this and like think about this and ask the Lord, like, what am I doing? And there were many nights where I was like, what do I even have to say? Is what I'm saying valuable? Is what I'm saying important? But I felt like God just continued to put on my heart that this is important and this is a message, and it doesn't matter if it's like perfectly said, or it doesn't matter if it's like the biggest revelation ever. It's something that's relatable to your generation. It's being a sister and a friend to people who need a sister and a friend. It's giving them truth and biblical truth and all those things. And it was really cool because by the time I got there, I just felt really confident that the Lord was going to speak through the words that he had given me. And right before we went to this like production meeting or whatever, that the morning of the day I was going to speak, and I was so nervous. And we were running through the show, and they said, all right, Dr. John, would you please give us a little synopsis of what you're going to say? And he was like, yes. And he steps into this moment, and I mean, it was literally like the most perfect. He was like, and then I'm going to make this argument, and then I'm going to object it, and then I'm going to do this one. And I was like, oh my gosh, that is really smart. And then they were all like, wow, that is amazing. And then they're like, all right, Sadie, can you give us a little synopsis of what you're going to say? And I am like the worst at like shortening something I'm trying to say. Like I just never hit it in those moments. And so I was like, yeah. So I said whatever I said. I said my little synopsis of what I was going to say. And my husband leans over to me and he says, did you change your title? And I said, no, I just forgot it. Like, I totally just forgot it.
That's awesome.
It's really funny because John Piper leaned over to me and he said, in front of everybody, he said, hey, he said, you're right on track. And he said, what I'm saying is everything you're saying in a different way. And it really encouraged me because, you know, for somebody who's so much older and so much wiser to just be like, you're on track and what you're saying, what I'm saying in a younger way, was really cool. And so that encouraged me a lot for passion.
Yeah. We did a great job. We were Rob and I hate that I'm speaking for Rob and he's not here, but we're overwhelmed by how well you did. And not that we were like expecting less, but we were so encouraged that young voices in this generation are boldly proclaiming truth and doing it so eloquently and such a good job. And not just that, but connecting your storytelling ability and the way you delivered that really connected to the audience. And so, in which I loved about the message that you preach, and what I love about what you're sharing in general is you are really taking this line on truth in a generation that is saying, hey, truth is subjective. You're sort of pushing on that line that there is absolute truth. This is the truth. Are you getting pushback on that, or what are you hearing from sort of that stance?
You know, to be honest, I don't look too much into comments that I get. And so if I was getting pushback on that, I'm not sure. I probably am, because I am very aware that we do live in a generation that thinks truth is relative and anything can be truth and all of those things. But, you know, one of the first Bible verses I remember learning is, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Like no one comes to the Father except through me. And I take those words really seriously. And I feel like we have an amazing Heavenly Father, and heaven is real. And so for me, that truth for me is enough to tell everybody that that's the truth, that there is a Jesus who is the way, he is the truth, and he is the life. And if you want to get to the Father, you're going through him. And so I think for me, I just have a strong conviction of that truth. And I don't want to lead people by my own words. I don't want to lead people from my own ideas. I want to lead people from the truth of the word, because I think it's amazing. You know, our relative truth that this generation is talking about is different every day, but there's this word that's been the same for over 2,000 years. Like, to me, that is just evidence that there's something there that's standing, you know, something there that's truth stands. So I don't know that I'm getting pushback. I might be, but I feel very confident in that truth.
Yeah, I think that's important to be confident. I think actually the word encourages us to be confident in this, in that truth. So how have you? And this is really intriguing me, because how did you come to this place of recognizing that your calling was to be sort of a I don't know if you call yourself a preacher, but that's what you do, what you did at Passion, what you continue to do. When did you recognize that calling in your life?
That's crazy because not for longer than what people probably think. The show started, Days with the Stars happened, and I didn't know what I was going to do. It was senior year of high school, and I was like, I don't really know what just happened to my life. I'm clearly not about to play college basketball. I don't know where I'm about to go next. And so I thought about going to LA, and I thought maybe I'll just do the whole acting thing, because at the time opportunities like that were being presented after Dance with the Stars. But that's not really what I wanted to do. It just kind of felt like that was the only option. And at the time, like where life was heading, it's like, oh, you hit a reality TV show, and you go on Dance with the Stars, you move to LA. Like that's just kind of like the thing. And I didn't want to do that. And so I remember praying in the summer before, just thinking, what am I going to do? And I went to this summer camp, and I was like, Lord, like, I need you to speak to me in this camp. Like, what am I going to do next? And this camp was very different than how I grew up. I grew up at a church that didn't believe that women could speak in the church, and that wasn't biblical to the church I grew up in. And so I never even thought about speaking in the church. That was not even something I had seen done. That was not even something I had considered. And then I walk into this camp, and a woman preacher gets up there, and her name's Alex Seeley. She's pastor at the Belonging Church. I ended up going to the church. Yeah, she's
Alex,
the best.
Listen, we just talked to Alex 2 weeks ago. She is
I love her.
I love her.
She's amazing. So yeah, she was there, and the whole time she was talking, my mouth was like on the floor, and it was like everything she was saying was really impactful, but it was the way she was saying it that was getting me. It was like the confidence and the authority and the just belief that she had in every word that she was saying. And I thought about like where I was at in my life, and I'm like, I have this platform to say anything and people listen, and I want to say something that really matters, and I want to do something that matters, and I want to and I do believe in the Bible, and I love Jesus. Why am I not saying that? Like, why am I not doing this? And I looked over at who I came with, and I said, I'm going to do that. And they laughed because I was so shy at the time. I was like, no, like I'm really going to do that. Like, that's what I want to do. And so for the first time ever, I responded to an altar call, went to the front, raised my hand, was like, Lord, I'm giving my life to you. This is all for you. Like, I'm laying everything down, and I walk in with you. And that was the first day of my journal. I started to draw out Live Original Tour. What would it look like if we brought the word on tour? And now we've been doing that for 4 years, and I've been preaching. And I actually, the whole reason I started preaching is because Louie and Shelley asked me to preach at Passion at their church before I'd ever preached anywhere. And I remember I was like, are you sure? I don't preach. But I had been in that camp, and I had said yes to God. And in that response time, I said, here I am, no limits, distractions, send me. And so they asked me, and I said, yeah. I ended up preaching at their church, and the video ended up getting like over 50 million views all over the world, which is how people started to think or know that I was a preacher, which is what started everything. So God really put me there before I even thought about it, honestly.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. We had Alex on the show a couple weeks ago. We talked with her, and we talked about this women in ministry piece. And we asked her about it, and her response was interesting because she had two responses. One, she said in Australia, it's very common for women to be preachers. Like that's like the common thing is women to be in ministry. And then she pushed back on sort of our American understanding that like in a lot of churches, that's not acceptable. And she just, listen, you got to listen to the episode, because she just went on and on about how God made us and God made women to have the opportunities, and she blew us away. And we are huge fans of the Belonging and the Seeleys. Actually, they were here on campus so every spring we have something called Lee Day, which is like a big exposure event. Yeah. And the Belonging came and did worship for us. And so Henry and Natalie and the whole group, great, incredible people. Incredible people. So, I mean, I say all that to say we love Alex as well. Like, she's incredible. And so if Alex prayed for you, you got the stamp of approval from us. Like, that's all we need to hear.
Alex is amazing. She mentored me too when I moved to Nashville. She would have coffee with me because I was confused. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I saw you preach, and then I said yes, and now it's happening. And it was really cool because I got to tell her years later, after I had been preaching for a while, I guess like 2 years, I had coffee with her, and she didn't know me from Adam. She only she followed me on Instagram, but she didn't know she didn't know she was the reason why I started to teach. And so I had coffee with her and I was like, you know how you always say, because I went to her church and she always says, like, even if one person gets this. And I was like, I just want to encourage you that, like, I was the one person that got it that one day, and maybe a ton of people did, and I pray that they did, and I'm sure that they did. But like, I responded yes to the things that you were saying, and now like so many people have been impacted by that. And it was just a really cool reminder for both of us that, like, really, we say we're doing it for the one, but like, are we really doing it for the one? Because that one really does matter, and the impact that one might have could be so significant, even if it is just like 10 other people, is significant. And so we had like an amazing conversation, and she couldn't believe it. She was like, really? Like, I didn't even know. Like, it was really cool.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about what you mentioned just a little bit ago. You had the opportunity to go to LA, and which comes with at a great price tag, I'm sure, to go and act and make considerable money, make movies, TV shows, whatever the opportunities were. But you have this other thing, God drawing you and calling you to something that is less glamorous in a lot of regards. I mean, you have a platform, you're doing great things with it. How did you wrestle that tension out? So if you're speaking to a room of young adults, and hopefully they're listening on this podcast, and they're going, I've got this opportunity to go do something, or I got this calling God's pulling me to that may cost me something, and it does. How did you come to that reconciliation, that place of going, I'm going to follow God?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. You know, I think whenever the world offers you something that is actually seems to be a great offer as far as worldly things go, but then at the same time you have this, it's not mysterious, but this unknown call to what you feel God's pulling you in that direction. That I think everybody faces that. Like, everybody faces like the world versus like the God calling, you know? And like, I was definitely at the height of that in that moment of like, was it LA? Was it acting? Because this is every direction that this whole thing has been going. This is where everything's been leading up to. This makes sense. I'm getting offers. Feels crazy. Doors were opening left and right, except for I didn't have peace. Like, I did not have peace. And that's really what it came down to. And this, I had no idea what that looked like or no idea what that meant, but I had peace. I wanted to go in that direction, because here's the thing, like, by the time that I got offered to go to LA and act and stuff like that, like, I had already experienced what the world had to offer, in the sense of like, I had been on Dance with the Stars, I'd done some modeling, I'd done all that.
Yeah.
And like, the way that it left me feeling was like, it was like nothing. It was like, I wasn't confident who I was. I didn't really feel like much of it had impact. There was a high for a night, but the next day you're back in your hometown and you're like, what just happened? I didn't feel like it was very fruitful, very life-giving. It was at times exciting, but it wasn't sustainable. And then on the other hand, anytime I walked with God, I did feel confident. I wasn't insecure. I wasn't struggling with the way that I looked like. I was very confident in who I was, and I had peace. And like, to me, I just started to realize, like, I mean, what we all have to, I guess, come to terms with is that, like, what the world has to offer pales in comparison to what Christ does for you and does within you, and what you get to do, like, for him. Like, there's so much purpose, so much life. And to me, like, being on Dancing with the Stars, it's really fun, and like, people watch it and they're entertained. But being on a stage and preaching the gospel and watching people literally go from dead to alive, there is nothing like that. You cannot compare the two. This is so much better. This is so much just a better way to do life. It's more exciting, and it leads to hope instead of just a night of like, that was good, you know? And so I think for me, I had just kind of seen it at a young age, and it was very heightened for a few years. And, you know, it's kind of like many celebrities say, they get to the top and they look around, they're like, now what? You know, because there's no depth there.
Yeah. I've never been on Dancing with the Stars, but I have preached several sermons in my life. And I can echo what you're saying, that I don't know a place in my life that at the end of it, I feel more alive and more complete and fulfilled in who I'm supposed to be. Like that moment, the sermon, the amen, the closing prayer, the altar call, all those things. And I step off the stage and I go, that's what God wired me up to do.
Yeah,
like, and it's like, and I know not everybody listening, not our entire audience is full of preachers. So just a couple of preachers here having like shop talk, me and you, but but I think no matter what God's called you to, there's
whatever.
it's the same emotion.
It's the same emotion. Like, I mean, literally my friend who like paints jackets, I'm not kidding. She paints jackets and she makes old things come new. When she paints jackets and somebody wears jackets, it's the same life-giving feeling that she has that whenever I preach. And like my other friend, like she has a clothing store and like she just has clothes, but yet like she prays over that place. She has a prayer wall. When people come in and write on that prayer wall, she feels the same sense of alive. And so it's whenever like you're operating the gifting that God has for you, like obviously the God who made you is going to be the God who already breathed life in you and continues to breathe life in you whenever you're fulfilling the things he's purposed you to do. And so like, it's cool to watch all my friends experience that life-giving thing when they're walking in their calling. And the thing is that none of the, like most calls that you get from God, as far as like when he's calling you to go into something, it's not going to make sense. And it's not going to seem like the best option, but it is the most fulfilling option.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I've said this, and it's something, and I'm revealing my journals a little bit, but that I've worked through in myself that God is a father who gave the gift. So he takes joy in seeing us use it. So like, I think about that when I operate in the things God's given me and the gifts he's given me, that as a dad, he goes, that's my kid. And I gave him that. And I'm super excited to see him use it. It's like I'm sure you got great Christmas gifts and your parents are like, yes, she loves it. Like sometimes I think God's that way when he puts his gift in us and we use it and he goes, yes, they're using it. This is so good.
I love that. That's so good.
So I think he takes joy in what we do. And I think we see that. And I think we feel, that's what we feel when we talk about the fulfillment is God smiling on us and going, yeah, that's what I've designed you to do or to be or how to live, whether it's preaching or painting jackets or designing clothes, no matter what the gifting is, if you're doing it in the purposes of God, there's a fulfillment there. So this is not, again, you didn't look at the questions, but you keep mentioning peace. Do you know your Enneagram?
Yes, my Enneagram is a 6.
You're a 6. See, I'd have guessed 9.
That's
so,
awesome.
because you kept saying peace, so you're a 6. So
that's actually really compliment because a 6 goes to 9 in health. So
that's true.
I'm healthy right now.
I've got a 6 in my house, so I understand the 6. So the 6, we can talk Enneagram, and I hope nobody minds. But so one of the things of the 6 is worst case scenarios. So did you wrestle that out?
Oh yes, trust me, my brain. Okay, so everybody like in my family, well, like. Yeah, I'll say this. My family and my husband, like, they know I'm a 6. Everybody else is always like, you gotta be a 7. Like, you're so enthusiastic, doing all these adventures. And I'm like, yeah, but you don't know the 1,000 worst case scenarios I've thought of before I go on that adventure. It's like, my brain works like that. I think of like everything and then I prepare for like the worst. And then I'm like, all right, let's go, let's do it. And so, yes, I definitely did think about the worst case scenario coming to that. But I will say this. It's like, I feel like God, the whole Bible can really just answer any Enneagram problem you have. And it really does speak to a 6. Like, I mean, everything is like, do not fear, do not fear, do not fear. Like Peter walking on water. Yeah, there's a lot of bad case scenarios. Keep walking. It's like all of these things. It's like nothing really went right most of the time, except for God was faithful and they came on alive. And so, or they didn't, and God's still faithful to his promises. Like Hebrews 11,
absolutely.
It talks about how like nobody actually got what they were promised because God has something perfect for all of us that he's promised. And so for me, I like being a 6 and going through all that. I did navigate through all that, but at the end of the day, still, if you read God's word stands, So it's like still the best option.
Yeah, I mean, that's a healthy place to be, and I noted that because you kept saying that you had so much peace, and that's right for the Enneagram friends out there. A 6 moves to a 9, which is the peacemaker. So that's a good indication of emotional health. I'm a 2, so like I walk in a room and I feel everybody's emotions, and I go, "How can I help you? Please let me help you." Like, and I didn't know that. What's funny is like we took the Enneagram probably. Like 2 years ago, Rob introduced it to me. And it was after I took the test and found out I was the helper that I realized how much I said the word help in my conversation. Like
That's
it was all
so
the time. I
funny.
was like, let me help you. Let me help you. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I say it all the time.
That's so funny.
So
No, I totally feel that. So I'm actually like, have you ever heard of a counterphobic six? There's some numbers that have like a counter number, but
no.
I'm a six that like comes across like an eight sometimes. But what's funny is
Oh,
a six that's counterphobic challenges everything about the six. So
okay.
whenever we read this and everybody's like, that's so you, we're laughing because I have a fearless tattoo. I have a live fearless book. I'm like jumping out of airplanes because I'm like challenging everything about what makes me a six.
Ah, I get
I will
that.
not be afraid. I will be fearless. All those things.
Well, that's interesting. I'll have to look into that counterphobic. I don't know because I just want to help everybody. It's like the
I love
podcast. Like,
it.
how can I help whoever's listening? Call in now. We're gonna help you. Like
Call in
that's
now.
we didn't
It's
have a call in, but they could call in. I don't know if my
so
cell phone rings. It's gonna be
funny.
awkward. So, um, so what? So I want to talk a little bit because I know you're busy and you stay busy. And again, we talked about your friend Rebecca Lyons and our friend. What rhythms have you found to overcome the busy and be productive?
Yeah, so good. Man, what rhythms have I found? Well, Rebecca and I actually talked about this. We talked about the connect rhythm that she talks about. And I think that is probably one of the things that really does keep me still in the midst of like a really busy schedule. I actually joked about this to somebody yesterday. They said, how did you and Christian do long distance relationship the whole
Mm,
time? And I said, well, I feel like everybody who's in relationship with me is long distance because I travel so much that even my best friends, even my parents, my family, I'm always on the go. So it feels rather long distance because there will be days apart. But at the same time, like that connection is super huge for me because being a six, the loyalist, I love my people.
yeah,
I want to stick with my people. And so whenever I'm back home, getting together with them, going to coffee, going to lunch, getting out, calling my family, FaceTime my parents when I'm out, that constant connection is really grounding and really great for me in the midst of something crazy because my parents and I always talk about this, and anybody who goes into reality TV, they'll come and ask advice, and we say, here's the thing, your life is going to change a lot, but you don't have to change. Like don't like make yourself believe that just because your life changes you have to change. And so I kind of think
yeah,
about my busy schedule, even though I'm busy, you're not too busy for the people you love. Even though your life is changing, you should never change. And so just constantly keeping up with the people, that's a big rhythm that I think for me
yeah,
is really good. And even my husband, now that I'm married, we travel a lot, but then also like when we're back home, like being home and like cooking and doing the things that like we do to connect us to our home.
yeah. So as a type six, and we're talking Enneagram some more. Do you have like a very small set squad of people? Like, is it like not exclusive? I don't want to say exclusive, but
Yeah.
usually sixes have like they have 4 or 5, and that's their people, and that's it. Like, it's hard to
I
make new
definitely
friends.
have like my people. I will say this, and my friends say this about me, so I'll use what they say. I'm a friend to everybody in the room, but like I have my friends. Like I
Yeah,
love people. I love friends. I love making new friends, but like there are the people who like know everything about me. Who like
right.
I will call them. They know. They will call me. We'll keep up with each other. They know everything, and that also is a rhythm, letting yourself know who your people are that you can be real with and talk to and like be vulnerable with that aren't going to judge you, but be like, you know what, that's totally understandable, but here's truth. And so
Yeah.
I definitely have that squad for sure.
Yeah. So you're newly married, Christian is your husband. How have you guys sort of settled into a married rhythm with you traveling so much?
Yeah, well, marriage has been awesome, but we've only been married for 2 months, and so everybody's like, how's
So it's
marriage?
all new.
Amazing. And they're like, yeah, 2 months. But no, it's fun to live with your best friend, especially we were long distance. And so now we get to live together. It's awesome. But traveling's been great because he travels with me. For the most part, we haven't had to travel separate yet. And it's been
That's
such
good.
a blast. Yeah, we've had so much fun. Christian, he didn't like travel when we first started dating. So I was like, I guess this is gonna like be kind of hard. But then all of a sudden he started loving travel. I think just like because we were dating, we started traveling, having fun
Mm-hmm.
together. And so now he wants to travel more than me. I'm like, chill, like we gotta have the whole time. But we have a blast. We joke because our first argument ever, like when we were dating, our very first argument was in an airport in one of those like magazine shops, like behind a magazine rack.
Oh,
And it was just because he was so stressed about travel. And it was because they put him, the worst traveler, on standby. And, that's just for
oh
him.
goodness, no.
What about talking about worst case scenarios? But now we have a blast and it's been really fun.
That's
And I
good.
think just actually, as far as a rhythm, I think just doing it together, it's just been
Yeah.
good. Even if we're not traveling together, doing it together, calling each other, telling each other about what
Yeah.
happened. Because that's how we did when we were dating, when I was on tour. So.
Yeah. So how is Christian sort of, I'm trying to think of the right word to ask, but as you kind of taken on this role of ministry, what does Christian recognize as his role or his calling in supporting that, or in ministry himself even?
Yeah, it's great. Well, it kind of all started when we started dating. I wasn't sure if I wanted to date at the time because I was really taking seriously what God was doing in my life. And I didn't want him to feel like he was tagged along to that. I wanted him to feel like he was with me in that, if he was going to be with me, or it just wasn't the time. And I just didn't feel like it was the time because we were long distance and I couldn't really bring him into that yet. So I was like, maybe we'll just date another time. Well, I remember calling him and it was like going to break up with him. And I was like, I really like you. I was like, that's the ironic thing about what I'm about to do. I really like you. But like, I was like, but I just like, I'm so busy right now and God's just calling me into a lot. And I know that like, you're supposed to be at school right now. Like, that's where you're at. And I don't want you to be like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And I said, I'm just going to feel really bad as like I go and I'm doing all these things that like, I don't know. I'm just gonna be really sorry that I wouldn't be able to be there for where you're at in life right now. And dating,
Yeah.
I would like to be together in that. So I'm just sorry. And he stops me and he was like, actually, I had to stop you. He was like, never apologize for what God's doing in your life. And he said, because if it's a win for you and it's a win for the kingdom, then it's a win for me. And I actually quoted
Well, he's
that.
a good man then.
He's a good man. I quoted that in our vows actually because it was such a powerful moment. And I realized then like, okay, this is different. Like you really love Jesus with your whole heart. And so if there's a win in the kingdom, then you count that as a win. And that was just so gospel to me. Like that was like so family, so unity, so what Jesus prayed at the end. And so I was like, okay, let's do this. And so we just started navigating through what that was going to be when we were dating. And when we first started dating, he wanted to do construction. And I was like, great, like do construction, like go like be blessed, bless the people, build the houses, all this stuff. Like I was like, great. But then after Passion last year, he was like, you know what, Sadie, I feel like I don't know what it is, and I feel like God's just kind of shifting my heart a little bit into something with ministry because I've been loving what you're doing and being with you in that. And so now what it's formed to be has been us doing a lot of things together. And Christian is very introverted, but he is in business and school. And so he definitely has like that side of the brain that can help us with stuff that Team Live Original is wanting to do and going into doing. And he's been like a great voice to that. But then this past weekend, when we went on our college run, he actually got up and shared his testimony and really impacted a ton of people. So he'll step in when he needs to and when he feels called to, but he definitely is very content to stand back there and be like, all right, God, what are you going to do tonight? And pray towards it.
Well, that's encouraging. It's encouraging that he stands with you in that and travels with you. I think that's a critical component in ministry and marriage is that it's not a you and an I, but it's a we, that we're doing this.
Yeah. Yep. No, that's.
And so I think, and you got some great models in that in the Sealeys and in the Lions and in Louis and Shelley. I mean, those are couples you look at you would never exclude one from the ministry. They're all doing it together.
Right.
And so I think those are great models for marriage and ministry for you and for Christians. So you got a new book coming out. Let's talk about the book because that's really why you're on here. I mean, we're having a great conversation, but the book comes out, or by the time this episode airs, the book should be out. So buy it wherever you can buy it. But tell us what inspired this new book.
Yeah, so this book, it's really crazy because I actually started writing a book called Live United. Totally different book, all about unity. It was about coming together, stop the comparison, all the different things. And in the midst of writing this book, I just felt called to change it, to live. And I wanted to talk about life and death. I wanted to talk about the importance of life, the value of life, why we have life, what happens after life, all the different things, how to live your life, actually thinking about the next life, those kind of things. But I also wanted it to be light and I wanted it to be fun. So these are like this is like kind of contradicting because it's life and death,
Yeah.
it's light and fun. And the reason I wanted to do that is because I think like life and death is such an intimidating topic for people to talk about because like death scares you and life is like life and it's different for everybody. But at the same time, I felt like we have to talk about it because death happens to everybody and life has happened to you if you're able to hear this conversation. And
Mm-hmm.
so I just felt to shift. So I shifted. And in the midst of writing this book, one of my friends actually committed suicide and it was really hard and it was really confusing and it was really sad. I remember like where I was when I found out, dropped everything and just couldn't stop crying. And
Yeah.
that's when I started to realize just how many people commit suicide. I started to read into it and all this stuff. And I felt like, okay, God, like this is why you had me shift it. And the book, I'm not going to say it is the perfect book if you're dealing with suicidal thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's more resources that you should get, and there are people you should go talk to. But I do think it is an encouraging book that breathes life over you and gives you another option than to just be over. I think it kind of says you might feel like this, you might be like this, you might have been told you were like this, but this is what the Lord says over you. And there's so
Yeah.
much scripture and there's so much life. And talk about being a sister and a friend, that's just kind of what I felt to do. I don't know all the words to say. It intimidated me to write a book like that because I was like,
Right.
I'm not a professional. But at the same time, I was like, but I'm a good friend. And this is what I would say to my friend. And so I'm going to write this book. And we put pictures in the book. We made it just so vibrant that when you get it,
Mm-hmm.
you just feel like you're loved. And so I'm so excited. It's crazy. So many little details during the writing process of this book just made it so clear that this is what we were supposed to do. But it was the most challenging book to write. Live Original flowed out. It was like, this is everything I want to say to anybody. Live Fearless was like, this is everything I've gone through, and here it is. This is what the Lord taught me. And Live was like, okay, I'm just trying to be a good friend and tell you that your life matters.
That sums it up, right? I mean,
Yeah.
so this book, what was really and you talked a little bit about it, but what made it most challenging? Did you just feel like maybe unqualified to speak to it, or was it just such a challenging subject that sometimes I think the difficult subjects we have to wade through some of the tough water to get the words out. I know I mean I like to write and blog and those type of things, and I think there's some ones that are like on the tip of the tongue and they just flow out. And then
Yep.
there's other ones that are sort of marinating and God's dealing with you in, and you're like, I don't know, Lord, about this one. Was it more that the case, or?
Yeah, it was more that. It was like, God, I know that you want me to speak to this topic. I don't know the words to say. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
right. And there's weight to this because this is people's life. Like,
Yeah.
and so I think it was just so weighty. And I think I just started realizing who all is going to read this book. Like the reality is people are going to read the book who have written letters, who have written suicidal letters. There are people who are going to read this book who are sick, there are people who are
Mm-hmm.
going to read these letters who are in the hospital. There are people who are going to read these letters whose parents just got divorced. There are people who's going to read this letter who is like, and having the worst year of their life. And there's also going to be people who read this book, that are having the best year of their life, and people who
Right.
are like actually thriving or actually just don't know what their purpose is. And so I'm like, how do you speak to life when they're in all these different places and the value of it? And also that, like, even though it might feel like this is the path of life that Jesus has you on, and you can be in this but still feel the fruit of love, the fruit of joy, the fruit of peace, all of these different things. So navigating through how to get people, whatever place they're in, to truth was hard in a fun, light way because I wanted
Yeah.
it to be easy read. I always want my books to be an easy read. I don't care if somebody picks it up and is like, this is like the easiest read sixth grader can read. I'm like, great, I want them to. Because for me, like, it's hard for me to read. I actually have dyslexia. And so growing up, it was really challenging to read. And so I always wanted my books to be easy for people to read.
Yeah.
I put pictures in it. So they're simple concepts. And so for me, I wanted to take a super deep topic and make it easy for anybody to read, but also at the end of the day, after they read it, genuinely feel like their life mattered. And I do think we did that. I think the book
That's
turned
good.
out amazing. It was a longer process than it was supposed to be. It was changed. Like I said, we started writing Live United like 2.5 years ago, and it somehow changed into Live and took forever. But like, praise God, because by the end of it, when I got that book in the mail the other day for the first time, me and Christian both like ran laps around our kitchen table. We were like so excited how it turned out. So
That's good.
it's gonna be powerful.
It's good. And we're excited for it. We're excited for the release, and we know it's going to impact a lot of lives. And so we're just so excited to have you on the show. And thank you so much for taking time with us. We have one question. Now, you didn't go to college, right?
No, I didn't.
Okay. So typically, and I'm going to have to edit the question a little bit. Typically, we ask this one question to every one of our guests. So I'm going to spin it a little bit. We usually ask the question, what have you learned in college that didn't take in the classroom? So we'll use your life as a reality star then. What did you learn outside of school as a star in the starring role in TV, Dancing with the Stars, or just anywhere outside the school space? What's the greatest lesson you've learned outside of a classroom?
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. I love it. Me and my friend were talking about this last night because all my friends go to Auburn. So of course, like we were
War
talking
Eagle, right?
I know, War Eagle. But it's crazy because I was telling them, I was asking them what they've learned, and like now that they're out and their different jobs that they learned in college or things that surprise them. So this is so funny that you asked me that. I think for me, I actually tell this to everybody, is that so many people are like so afraid of doing something great because they're scared they're going to get criticized. And what I've learned is you are going to get criticized, and it's not that bad, and it's okay, and you will survive. And it doesn't even matter what they say because they don't even know you. And so for me, I know it's a simple thing, but I really do think that that is the thing that stops so many people from doing this amazing thing God calls them to. They're like, well, what if somebody says something bad about me? Or what if somebody criticizes me? Or what if somebody misunderstands me? And I'm like, they will criticize you. They will misunderstand you. They will say something bad about you. They say it to my face all the time on my Instagram or on my YouTube and all those different things. And one of the main comments that I get that's negative is like that my voice is annoying. And the thing is, if I would let that one comment get to me, then I wouldn't do the one thing God has really called me and elevated me to do. So I always tell people that because, you fear that, and then it happens and you're like, I survived it, it's okay. And I really do want people my age to get that, because especially when they're in college, when they're about to go out and do these things and step into the job and step into the role, to not like hold back all that you are and all that God has for you just because you're scared of what people are going to say, because at the end of the day, it just really doesn't matter.
Yeah. So let me ask this, and that's usually our final question, but I got a follow-up question to it, because you said you talked about this with your friends who are either in college or finishing college. And sometimes that road is like, what am I going to do next? That's where the fear comes in.
Yeah.
Do you feel like maybe with the journey God's put you on at a young age of being in the spotlight, writing some books, now getting on some platforms to speak for Him, helps you say even more so to those friends, hey, you can push back on fear and do great things for God?
Oh, 100%. 100%. My life verse is Hebrews 10:35. It says, so then do not forget the confident trust that you have in the Lord. Patient endurance is what you need now so that you can do the will of God. It's my life verse because confident trust is like the key word there. Confident trust in the Lord, for it will be richly rewarded. You're going to have to be patient. You're going to have to endure some things to do His will for your life. But it helps me because I think about that so many times. Each time I stepped into the place of the unknown, which was several different times, God blew me away. It was so richly rewarded. And that confidence begins to add because you begin to trust Him more and more and more. You persevere through those things that feel weird, that feel awkward, that are hard, that are confusing, that are unknown. And then you get to the starting to like follow the will of that he has for you, and you're like, wow, this is amazing. So definitely talk to that to people my age, and I'm confident in that because I'm like, look what God has done.
Yeah.
And when you come from a place of trust, and you can only have trust from relationship and only built upon different parts of your relationship, I'm like, oh, walk into it. I don't care how, like when people tell me, they're like, I don't know, I'm at a crossroads, I feel like God's calling me here, and they're all worried, I'm like smiling, they're like, why are you smiling? I'm like, because that's the best place to be, because God is about to blow your mind.
Yeah. Let's end right there. I think that's a great statement. The crossroads is the best place to be. So, Sadie, how can we stay connected to you?
Oh, you can stay connected to me in many ways right now. Instagram,
All right.
I'm legit Sadie Rob. I got YouTube. I got all kinds of things. But also, I'm on the road. Catch me when I'm in your town.
Catching town. So we're excited about the book is Live. It should be out now. Pick it up on Amazon or wherever you can buy books, right? Anywhere. It's going to be out everywhere, right?
Anywhere you can buy books. Yep.
Thank you. So we are so thankful for Sadie for you coming on the show. And as we like to say at the Collectives Co podcast, you have a seat at the table. Thanks for coming on.
That's so sweet. Thank you so much. Good to meet you.
Hey, thanks for listening to this episode of the Collectives Co podcast. Would you do us a favor and subscribe, rate, and review, and share this on social media so this content can reach other great leaders?